The untold saga of a knight battling with the Saracens in 1250. In a dusty corner of history lies the story of a knight whose sword clashed not just with steel, but with fate itself. The year was 1250, and the Nile Delta was a battleground where destinies are rewritten and heroes are forged in the trial of war. Here, amidst the shifting sands and under the unforgiving sun, guess what? A knight named Jean De Joinville found himself at the crossroads of destiny. Being a close confidant of King Louis IX, Joinville saw everything. He had an insider's perspective on the strategies, decisions, and dilemmas that shaped the Crusade. So stick around. You don't want to miss this story. The setting and players. Al-Mansura is a name that resonates with historical significance. During some days, this name was more than just a dot on the map in 1250. Located on the east bank of the Damietta branch of the Nile River Delta, this town was the capital of Al-Dakhaliya, but its roots go deeper. It originated in 1219 as the camp of Al-Malik al-Kamil, the nephew of the legendary Saladin. So, why was this town so crucial? Well, it was the heart of Egypt, a land seen as the backbone of Islam's forces. The Crusaders believed that conquering Egypt was the key to reclaiming Jerusalem, a city they had lost twice by then. Now, when it comes to the Nile Delta, this was a region that was the Muslims' richest province. This wasn't just a fertile land where rivers meet, but a strategic masterpiece. Control of Egypt, especially the Nile Delta, provided an outsmarting route to the cities of Palestine. Whoever controlled the Delta had a shortcut to Jerusalem, making it the vulnerable center of a pincer movement from Acre and Suez. The Nile Delta was the stage where strategies unfolded, and their Crusaders and Saracens would clash in a battle that would shape history. And right there, amidst, was our knight, Jean De Joinville, ready to etch his name into the archives of history. He was the eyes and ears of this crusade, documenting each swing of the sword and every tactical move. He was more than just a participant, but there were other key players. King Louis IX of France was there. Now, Louis wasn't just any king. He was a man on a mission. His eyes were set on reclaiming the Holy Land, a goal that had puzzled the Crusaders since they lost Jerusalem in 1244. To achieve this, he aimed to conquer Egypt, which was the main seat of Muslim power in the Near East at the time. Louis saw Egypt as the kingpin, the key to unlocking the gates of Jerusalem. And so he led the Seventh Crusade, a campaign that would either etch its name in glory or doom him to shame. And then there are the Saracens, the formidable opponents who stood in the way of the Crusaders' ambitions. Led by Ayyubid dynasty, they controlled both Egypt and Jerusalem. These weren't just warriors, but strategists who knew their land like the back of their hand. They were ready to defend their territory. But what motivated them? The heartbeat of two worlds. Well, this is the stuff that history books often skim over, but it's the heartbeat of any civilization and the lens through which they viewed the world. When it comes to the Crusaders, these were men fueled by a potent mix of religious passion and the promise of adventure. The church played a massive role in their lives, guiding their spiritual beliefs and social interactions. Knights like Jean De Joinville would have been deeply influenced by the Christian teachings, seeing their mission as a holy quest. This was a journey for the reclamation of their souls. Now, flip the coin, and you have the Saracens. These were skilled warriors, scholars, poets, and scientists. Islam was the cornerstone of their society, much like Christianity was for the Crusaders. But their interpretation of jihad, or holy war, was different. For them, it was about defense, not invasion. They were protecting their homeland, their culture, and their faith from foreign invaders. And here's where the battle began. Everyone with their own interests. The battle unfolds. The stage was set, the key players were in position, and the tension was intense. The Battle of Al-Mansura kicked off on February 8, 1250, and lasted until the 11th. It was a showdown between the Crusaders led by King Louis IX and Ayyubid forces commanded by a group of leaders: Sultana Shajar al-Dur, Vizier Fakhr ad-Din ibn az-Sa'ik, Faris ad-Din Attaki, and Baibars al-Bundukari. Both sides were sizing each other up on the initial stages, testing the waters. The Crusaders under Louis were eager to make their mark, and, well, they had a well-equipped army. They were armed to the teeth with swords, shields, and even some early forms of artillery. But there was a catch. They were fighting in narrow city streets where their numbers and heavy equipment became a disadvantage. They couldn't move freely, and many were cut down into cramped spaces. On the other side, The Ayyubid forces had the home field advantage. They knew the lay of the land and used it to their benefit. They set traps and used hit-and-run tactics, making the Crusaders play by their rules. The Ayyubid forces were also more agile, able to move quickly through the narrow streets and alleys, dodging the Crusaders' heavy artillery. But anyway, King Louis IX had a straightforward plan: seize control of Egypt to open the pathway to Jerusalem. He believed that a direct assault on al-Mansura would cripple the Ayyubid forces and pave the way for victory. The Ayyubid strategy was more distinct. Knowing the land like the back of their hand, they turned this knowledge into a weapon. They laid traps, employed hit-and-run tactics, and forced the Crusaders to play by their rules. And as we all know, there are moments that tip the scales in any battle. The Ayyubid commanders skillfully outplayed the Crusaders, taking advantage of their unfamiliarity with the local terrain to lead them into well-placed traps. The endgame was interesting, but before that, Jean De Joinville described a moment when he and his knights decided to attack some Turks who were loading their baggage. They charged, and Joinville spotted a Saracen trying to mount his horse. Seizing the opportunity, he forced his lance under the Saracen's armpits, taking him down instantly. But the battle was far from over. Another knight struck Joinville with a lance, pinning him down so much that he couldn't even draw his sword. It was a tricky situation, but Joinville managed to free himself, drawing a different sword attached to his horse. And then the numbers game came into play. Joinville and his knights found themselves surrounded by what they estimated to be 6,000 Turks. They were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. One of Joinville's companions, Lord Hugh of Tree, was killed in the chaos. Joinville himself faced a risky moment. His horse knelt under the weight of the Turks pressing upon him, causing him to fall forward. But he quickly got up, shield at his neck, and sword in hand, ready to continue the fight. But unfortunately, King Louis IX and his forces were trapped, overwhelmed, and ultimately vanquished. After the smoke cleared, King Louis IX found himself in an unexpected mess, captured, along with several of his high-ranking men. Capture and ransom. Far from just defeating them, the Ayyubid forces had also made them prisoners. This was a jaw-dropping twist that changed the entire storyline of the Seventh Crusade. Louis was a king, and his capture was a bargaining chip that the Ayyubid forces weren't going to waste. They demanded a hefty ransom for his release, and the conditions were severe. The Crusaders had to cough up 400,000 lives, an astronomical sum for that time. But they also had to surrender the city of Damietta, which they had initially captured as a launching pad for their crusade. The stakes were high and the conditions were tough, but what choice did they have? The Crusaders agreed to the terms. They paid the ransom and gave up Damietta. But the impact of this battle wasn't confined to just these two factions. It had a broader influence. The failure of the Seventh Crusade led to a shift in strategy for future Crusaders. The focus moved away from grand invasions to more localized efforts and diplomatic endeavors. It also affected the relations between Christians and Muslims, adding another layer of complexity to an already intricate relationship. Even today, the Battle of al-Mansura is often cited as a turning point in Crusader history. It teaches the importance of strategy, the unpredictability of war, and the resilience of those who defend their homeland.